I love this sort of stuff. Players recruiting other players. Sauce Gardner wants to play with T. Higgins and Calvin Ridley.
Jets, 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 Jets!
All right, gang, I'm really excited to talk about this one. I love when our star players try to go out and recruit other star players to make our team better. This whole thing got started when Sauce Gardner read a tweet by our own Richie from Jets Media saying, name a free agent no one is talking about that the New York Jets should sign. Sauce replies, Calvin Ridley and T. Higgins. And to that I have to say, I am very upset with Mr. Sauce Gardner because he clearly does not watch Jets Talk 24/7 because these are two wide receivers that we have been talking about here. But I want to get into it. I want to talk about the financial side of things. Can the Jets afford them? Are they going to leave their teams? What are their stats? What are the pros and cons, the injuries? All the good stuff about Calvin Ridley and T. Higgins. First thing of note, you might be asking, I bet Sauce Gardner knows how these guys play, so he wants to, he knows they're tough to go against. And that may be entirely possible, but Sauce has only played against T. Higgins. In that game, there were 2 targets, 1 reception, 19 yards. So Sauce locked down T. Higgins for, that one game, and then they didn't get to play anyone. Obviously, Ridley was suspended last year. But let's hop into it. Let's talk a little bit about these 2 particular players and if they're likely to wind up coming over to New York. First up, I want to talk about Calvin Ridley, the wide receiver formerly of Atlanta, now from Jacksonville. He's a free agent this offseason. He's 6'1", 190 pounds, 29 years old, had 76 receptions last year, 1,016 yards and 8 touchdowns. He is so good. He is an elite route runner. That is someone that I wanted back in 2022. Before we drafted Garrett Wilson, we were looking for a wide receiver. I wanted us to go make a move for Calvin Ridley. If you're telling me we could get him via free agency instead of having to make a trade, that's pretty enticing if you're asking me. Now, in 2022, he was suspended for a year due to gambling. That was why we did not trade for him, and ultimately why the Jaguars gave up 2 fourth-round picks, a 4th-round pick in 2023 and a 4th-round pick in 2024, but that 4th-round pick in 2024 was conditional. And what's interesting is the threshold was 75 receptions or 1,000 yards. Calvin Ridley in the final game of the season hit that, so it now makes it a 4th-round pick and a 3rd-round pick that the Jaguars are giving up. And it goes one step further. If they sign him to a long-term deal, it makes it a 2nd-round pick. So they will have given up a 4th-round pick and a 2nd-round pick for a receiver right now. And where we find this interesting is the franchise tag. So do the Jaguars decide to put the franchise tag on Calvin Ridley? It's going to be tough because they do have free agent pass rusher Josh Allen hitting the market. He is an elite edge rusher. He's going to get a monster deal. Now, you can only apply 1 franchise tag per year. So are the Jags going to use it on the pass rusher or are they going to use it on an edge or on the wide receiver in Calvin Ridley? I tend to think they are more likely to use it on Calvin Ridley because Josh Allen is so elite that you can just pencil in the next highest edge rusher contract, and I think that probably gets him locked away where he's probably pretty happy. And then Calvin Ridley, if you use the franchise tag, technically that's not a long-term deal. So that winds up keeping it a 3rd-round pick for the Jaguars this year instead of going to the 2nd-round pick. So I do think that he's going to be, I guess, sort of available if you want to trade for him, but I don't think he's actually going to hit the open market. Now, as far as injury, he's pretty good. He's been, relatively healthy over the course of his career. The only stretch of games he's missed in the last 4 years has really been the long stint with the gambling. Now, I hope the Jets get an opportunity to sign him, but I'm not so sure it's actually going to come to fruition. Now, the next player we're taking a look at is T. Higgins. Is T. Higgins potentially going to be available for the New York Jets? Cincinnati wide receiver. Cincinnati has a lot of issues because of all the free agents they have. T. Higgins, one of those free agents, 6'4", 219 pounds, 25 years old. Last year had 42 receptions, 656 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Now, T. Higgins, he's the body frame that I kind of would like the Jets to go after, a bigger bodied wide receiver. I would like someone that could be a red zone jump ball type target. And that's kind of more what T. Higgins is, as opposed to maybe Calvin Ridley, who's more of your precise route runner type of wide receiver. Last year, he had a career high 15.6 yards per reception. He needed, the Bengals need to pay Jamar Chase this offseason. He's going to get a monster contract. This is the 3rd year or he just finished his 3rd year, which means he can renegotiate his rookie deal. So I think he's going to wind up getting more money. T. Higgins is a free agent. You got Jonah Williams, their right tackle, who's a free agent, and you got Tyler Boyd, who's a free agent. So what are the Bengals going to do here? Now, they do have a bunch of cap space, so I do think it's highly likely that he's going to get the franchise tag, the $21.6 million tag, because Joe Burrow got his contract extension last summer, and he talked about with the team the plan moving forward for why he's signing this deal and who he wants brought back. And T. Higgins was one of those players. So I would be a little surprised in the window that the Bengals have right now if they allow T. Higgins to walk. From an injury perspective, he did miss 5 games this year, but overall he's been relatively healthy throughout his career. T. Higgins to me is a fascinating wide receiver. I mean, just the production that he's had, and really all 3 of those wide receivers, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, all 3 of them have had a really, really good career so far in Cincinnati. And it's like any one of these dudes could immediately be the number 2 wide receiver, possibly a number 1 wide receiver on a lot of different teams. So as far as T. Higgins and Calvin Ridley, Sauce, I'm on board. I very much like your scouting process as far as who you want to target. These are the players I want to target. I just don't know if either one of these guys is hitting free agency. If I had to guess, Calvin Ridley may have a better shot if they wind up having to use the franchise tag on Josh Allen, but we'll have to wait and see. Guys, let me know which one you would prefer, T. Higgins or Calvin Ridley. Is there another wide receiver that you think the New York Jets should target in free agency? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.
Jets!